At the top of the world, where the horizon glows with eternal twilight and the ocean turns to glass, a new battle is being written in the frozen air. The camera sweeps across the Arctic Ocean, white, endless, broken by the groan of moving ice. A lone polar bear moves across a thinning sheet, the ice bending beneath his paws. For thousands of years, he has ruled this place. But now the world beneath him is changing. The sea is warmer, the ice thinner, the rules rewritten. Far to the south, another bear awakes, the grizzly, master of the forest and lord of the mountains. His domain stretches from the pine valleys of Alaska to the windswept plains of Canada. Yet even he senses something shifting in the wind. The earth is heating. The barriers between two great worlds, ice and forest, are melting away. And for the first time in millennia, two giants are on a collision course. Snow swirls across the Arctic wasteland. Here temperatures can fall below -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sun disappears for months. Yet life endures, sculpted by cold, perfected by time. Among the survivors stands the polar bear, Ursus maritimus, the sea bear. He is a creature of astonishing design. His coat appears white, but each strand of hair is transparent, hollow, designed to trap light and heat. Beneath, his skin is black, absorbing every ray of the pale northern sun. A thick layer of fat, sometimes more than 4 inches deep, insulates him from the deadly chill of the Arctic waters. He is not built for land. His paws are wide like snowshoes, made for swimming across icy seas and stalking seals that rest on the frozen surface. His sense of smell is so acute he can detect prey almost a mile away, even through a meter of solid ice. But this perfect hunter is now trapped by imperfection. Because the ice, his kingdom, is disappearing. Each summer, the ice vanishes sooner and returns later. The bear must swim farther, fast longer, and starve longer. Many drown. Others wander into human settlements, searching for food that no longer exists. The monarch of the ice is being exiled by his own throne. Far below the melting seas, the land rises in a quilt of pine, river, and stone. Here lives the grizzly bear, Ursus arctos horribilis, a name that speaks of awe and fear. Grizzlies are the embodiment of raw strength, up to 800 pounds of power wrapped in fur and muscle. Their claws, 5 inches long, can dig through frozen ground or tear apart a rotting log for insects. Their shoulders carry a muscular hump, a living engine that drives them through soil and snow alike. But the grizzly is not merely brute force. He is clever, curious, and endlessly adaptable. He can sprint like a horse, climb like a cat, and swim when he must. He eats almost anything: berries, salmon, moose calves, roots, carrion. His omnivorous appetite makes him a survivor in a changing world. Every spring, as the snow retreats and rivers awaken, the grizzly rises from months of hibernation. Starving but strong, he follows the call of melting water. The sound of rivers is the sound of life returning. He moves through valleys streaked with willow and alder, through lands he has ruled since the last ice age. But now, as warmth creeps further north, he follows it, step by step, year by year, into a land he was never meant to reach. The Arctic is changing faster than any place on Earth. Temperatures rise twice as fast as the global average. Ice that once held for centuries now melts every summer. Forests stretch northward, greening what was once white. And with that transformation, the line between two worlds begins to blur. Polar bears are driven south, following seals and carcasses washed ashore by the tide. Grizzlies move north, chasing berries, roots, and fresh territory. Eventually, their paths cross on the tundra, a narrow strip of land between forest and sea. Scientists call it the ecotone, a biological borderland where ecosystems meet, overlap, and collide. But locals have another name for it. Here the kings of ice and forest meet, not as friends, not as enemies, but as survivors. One late spring, a polar bear lumbers inland, his ribs visible through his fur. He is starving. His prey, seals, have retreated with the sea ice. For weeks, he's wandered across the tundra, following the scent of carrion. 100 miles south, a grizzly mother and her cubs scavenge a washed-up whale carcass. It is a feast, rich, oily, and rare. The polar catches the scent. The tundra falls silent. Two shapes appear across the horizon, the pale ghost of the north and the brown shadow of the forest. The grizzly lifts her head. The polar lowers his. A confrontation born of hunger, not hate. The polar is larger, built for raw endurance. The grizzly is faster, grounded, territorial. They circle, sniffing the air heavy with decay and salt. The first charge comes from the grizzly, a warning. The polar stands his ground. Then, with a deep rumble, the white bear surges forward, his bulk shaking the earth. For a moment, fur and claws blur together, white and brown, snow and soil, until the polar withdraws, limping, defeated not by strength, but by desperation. The grizzly roars, not in triumph, but in warning. The north is no longer his alone. Years later, scientists begin to notice something strange. Bears shot by hunters in northern Canada have pale coats, but brown claws. Their faces are slimmer than grizzlies, yet stockier than polars. Their DNA tells the story. They are hybrids. Grizzly bears, the press calls them. A fusion of two species that have been separate for hundreds of thousands of years. They are not legends, not accidents, but signs of adaptation. Nature experimenting with itself. These hybrids carry the polar bear's endurance and the grizzly's flexibility. They can hunt on land and in water. They can survive both cold and warmth. Some scientists believe they may represent the bear of the future, the last survivor of a changing north. But others fear what they symbolize. Emerging born not of evolution's pace, but of desperation's urgency. When the world moves too fast, even evolution must run. Bears are more than symbols, they are indicators, sentinels of the wild. Their movements reflect what is happening to the entire Arctic ecosystem. When ice melts early, seal populations crash. Polar bears lose their main prey and turn to scavenging. They eat bird eggs, berries, and even seaweed, poor substitutes for the energy-rich fat of seals. Meanwhile, grizzlies find new hunting grounds in the north, feeding on roots, rodents, and salmon that now migrate earlier due to warming waters. Each species adjusts, but at a cost. The polar bear loses its body mass. The grizzly faces competition and conflict. The delicate balance that has sustained life for millennia is tipping. And behind it all stands a silent force: humanity. The same carbon that powers our cities fuels the melting of the north. The same warmth that comforts us in winter melts the ground beneath a polar bear's feet. The story of these bears is not just about nature, it is about us. Once, polar bears were the undisputed predators of their world, but now they have become scavengers. Drone footage shows bears raiding garbage dumps near Arctic settlements. Mothers lead cubs through oil fields, their white fur stained gray with mud. In Alaska, a grizzly hunts along the same shoreline, its shadow cast long in the fading midnight sun. It feeds on washed-up fish, the same food once claimed by polar bears. Their worlds are colliding not only in wilderness, but in behavior. The hunter becomes the beggar. The ruler becomes the refugee. And yet, even in struggle, there is majesty. Both species cling to existence with a stubborn, silent dignity that speaks to something greater, the will of life itself. In the span of one generation, the Arctic's geography has been redrawn. Where there was once ice, there is now sea. Where tundra stretched endless and barren, saplings take root. Caribou shift their migration routes. Seals vanish. Birds return earlier, nesting where glaciers used to be. And between these shifting frontiers, the bears wander, lost between two worlds. They are not just victims of climate change, they are witnesses. Each step of a grizzly on tundra, each polar bear swimming through open water is a record written in movement, a testimony to the reshaping of the Earth. Summer, Beaufort Sea Coast. A camera drone catches the moment. A male polar bear, massive, scarred, emerges from the fog. On the other side of the shoreline, a grizzly stands guard over a carcass. They face each other in silence, breath rising like ghosts. Minutes stretch into eternity. Then, motion. The polar charges first, driven by hunger. The grizzly meets him halfway, roaring like thunder rolling through the tundra. They collide, two empires crashing in the dust. The battle lasts less than a minute, but it carries centuries in its weight. Fur flies, blood stains the snow. Then, as suddenly as it began, it ends. The polar retreats, limping into mist. The grizzly stands victorious, but exhausted, trembling, panting. There are no winners in this new age, only survivors. We film them, study them, and mourn them, but we are also the reason they fight. For every barrel of oil drilled from frozen soil, for every ton of carbon sent skyward, the Arctic loses a little more of itself. And as the ice vanishes, so too does the line between past and future. When a grizzly and a polar meet, they are not merely animals, they are living symbols of our planet's crossroads. One adapted to Earth, the other to sea. Now both must share what remains. In their eyes, we see not rage, but resilience, not extinction, but endurance. In northern Canada, a female hybrid emerges from her den, two cubs following close behind. They stumble on unsteady legs, their fur pale gold, their eyes bright. They are neither polar nor grizzly, they are both and neither. They dig roots from thawing soil, fish in shallow pools, and rest under a sun that never sets. They do not know that their existence is a warning. They only know how to live. Perhaps that is the lesson of the North, that life, no matter how fragile, always finds a way. In just a few decades, the Arctic has transformed from an untouched wilderness to a dynamic frontier. Ice roads vanish, coastlines erode, and species once separated by entire ecosystems now share the same shrinking space. Scientists continue to study the bear line, tracking migrations, genetics, and hybrid births. But even they admit that the pace of change is beyond prediction. What took nature thousands of years now unfolds in a single lifetime. And so, the grizzly and the polar remain, caught in the tide of evolution's newest experiment. Winter returns, and with it, a fragile calm. The sea freezes once more, though thinner than before. Snow buries the tracks of both bears, covering the marks of their struggle. For a few brief months, the Arctic looks whole again. But the illusion fades with the first warmth of spring. They were kings of their worlds, ice and forest. Now they walk a shared and melting realm. Their story is not of enemies, but of endurance, of two survivors bound by the same fate. A polar bear stares into the gray sea. A grizzly watches from the tree line. Between them lies not distance, but destiny. As long as the winds still whisper over the tundra, their story will echo, the last battle of the North.